Hello and welcome to Sincerely Speaking. I'm Marcy Amaro. I am so excited to share what I have for you this week. I had the blessing and the opportunity to have a 30-minute or so conversation with my friend Carissa Conner. She is a well-being and joy coach, and I was actually invited to her platform to chat for a little bit about empowerment, about what do we do in those moments when we feel like giving up, when we feel like just calling it quits and turning in and just going back to the way things were. How do we keep going and how do we move forward? And the conversation started there, but it went into a lot of very deep moments of diving into how our mindset works and how we can rise above difficulties. So I thought that this would be a great conversation to share with you, not just because of all the value that we shared during the conversation, but also because second, there's a lot of actionable tactical things that you can start doing right now. And third, if you're new to my world, or if you haven't heard me explain for a while what it is that I do and how I help people, in this conversation, it will become abundantly clear to you what I do and how I can help and support you or people around you who might be in need of that self-leadership and what that means. So without further ado, I give you the conversation with Carissa Conner, and I will be back at the end to share some more information with you. Enjoy it.
Taking a while to think. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Today is a great day. It's a happy Monday. And so today I am talking with Marcy. I'm super excited about talking with her today because she is an excellent communicator and she is going to be able to share some really fantastic stuff with us today. So before I get too carried away, Marcy, hello and welcome.
Hello, Carissa. I'm really excited for our conversation today. You have no clue. I am so looking forward to this.
Okay, good. I am going to just double check really quick, make sure that I've got this working here. Yes. Okay. Here we go. All right. So today, Marcy, I would love to talk to you about empowerment. This is kind of like the theme for the month. And what I would love to know first is, have you ever struggled with finding empowerment in your life? Like, have you ever just was kind of like throw your hands up? I think I'm done. I don't know if I can do this. I just need to step out or quit or pause or something, right?
Nah, never. I'm joking. I'm
I,
joking. I actually posted something related to this a little bit this morning because
okay.
I've been talking about motivation and I did a podcast episode on motivation and all these things. And one of the things that I find is that people always point to find your why when you say anything about losing your motivation or wanting to give up or anything like that. And I kept thinking, but wait, I had all the motivation in the world that I needed. I had two kids that I loved and wanted to see well. I had a dad that was sick and a mom that was going to be left behind with no provision and I wanted to provide for. I had all these whys and still I found myself starting and stopping so many times along the way.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I found for me is that what kept me from moving forward was not that I didn't know my why or that my why wasn't strong enough, was the fact that somewhere inside of me, I didn't think it was something that I could control or that was within my grasp to do. Right. So I had a
Mm.
very strong lack of belief combined with I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Just like me. Just
Right?
like me.
So those two things combined made it really hard for me to move forward because anytime I came close to doing what I wanted to do, a little still voice in my head would say, but wait, are you sure? Do you really
Mhm.
think that you have what it takes to do this? What makes you think you can do this thing? Right. And
Uh-huh.
that combined with the fact that I wanted to make everybody happy and people like very well-intentioned people, right? Like my mom, who loves me, who wants the best for me, kept telling me things like, but you're so good at being a teacher. Why don't you stick with what's safe, right? Things like that. And I know her
Yeah.
heart was in protecting me, but it made me second guess every step I took, right?
Mm,
So I tried so many things. Like I remember my entrepreneurial bug bit when I was in my mid 20s. And
yeah.
I started trying in my mid 20s. And it wasn't until my mid 40s, so 2 decades later, that I finally said, you know what, I'm doing this. Come hell
Yeah.
or high water, no matter what happens, I'm doing this thing. But it took a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's so interesting you talk about, again, people pleasing, right? Like, that is, like, probably a whole conversation of things in and of itself, right? And again, like, the well-intended comments from, like, your mom and people who love you, or even the comments in your mind,
Yeah.
right? Your brain wants to keep you safe. It wants to make sure that everything is okay and stays within certain parameters. And at the same time, those second guessings, those things that are cutting into your belief and into your confidence really add up. And so I'm really curious, like, what shifted for you to, like, be able to either turn off those conversations in your mind, or did you change the conversations? What happened there?
Well, it's been a process, and I can't say that that's why I said I'm recovering, right? I'm
Yeah.
still in the process, and I think we all are. But it's a combination of things, as you well know. First and foremost, it was I had such a huge sense of dissatisfaction, and that kept me miserable really for the
Yeah.
longest time. And I would objectively look at my life and think, but wait, you have no reason to be miserable, right? You have a great husband, you have amazing kids, you haven't experienced true hunger, you've never been homeless, you have a roof over your head. Like I would list all these things, all the reasons why I shouldn't feel miserable. But deep
Mm.
down, I was miserable. I felt like every time I looked in the mirror, I was looking at someone who wasn't me. You know, have you seen
Mm.
Mulan, that
Yes.
the cartoon? That scene when she's looking in the water and she's like, "Who's that in the mirror?" Right? And that's
Mhm.
how I felt most of the time. And I know it sounds cheesy, but that's really how I felt most of the
Yeah.
time. And I
Yeah.
kept thinking, but why? And I finally realized that in trying to be who everybody else wanted me to be, I had lost sight of who I was, right? I had lost sight of the truth
Yeah.
of who I was. And when I
Mhm.
started looking back at my childhood, at the way I did things, at my dreams growing up, at the way I acted, even, I started, and it was weird because I started putting together like this video almost in my head of the
Uh-huh.
scenes that made me shift, that made me change into somebody that I really am not. And then
Mhm.
I started to backtrack and try to recover the scenes that pointed to who I really am, right?
Yeah.
And I started giving myself permission to be that again. Like
Mhm.
I to this day I still say that I'm an introvert who has a hard time connecting with people, but the truth of the matter is, when I look at my childhood, I was the one putting on shows in front of the entire family. That doesn't sound very introverted, right? So there was a part of me at some point that was extroverted. And then I could find the things that made me revert or go back to that idea of not speaking up, of not letting yourself be seen, of hiding a little bit, of just
Mhm.
trying to please everybody and forgetting about what it was that I wanted. And I was able to say, well, wait, before that I was this, and before that I wanted this. And I slowly
Mhm.
but surely started giving myself permission to pursue those things and to be those things again, and to reconnect with those parts of me that lived that way, right? So
Mhm.
that was the first thing. And the second, and this is something that is pretty recent, actually, last couple of years or so, is understanding that my brain is not me, right? And that
Again, that's a big thing when you realize your brain, your mind, those feelings are not really
you,
you.
right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that allowed me to see that was how often I found myself saying things like, wait, where did that come from? After thinking something, right?
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
why is that there after feeling something? And then I
Yeah.
was able to realize that if I can look at it that way, if I can have that feeling of disassociation with it, then it cannot be me, right? It has to
Mhm.
be something external. that is plugging it in or that is causing me to feel or act that way. So
Yeah.
when I was able to separate the two, then I was able to objectively see it for what it is and
Mhm.
refute it and find the evidence against it, right? Because when
Yeah.
you believe that your thoughts or your brain or whatever it is that you're experiencing is you, then negating it is negating yourself. It's like saying you no longer exist, or you're not really what you say you are, or you're fake, or whatever it is that you attach to that. But
Yeah.
when you're able to see it as something separate, then you can say, wait. That's not me. Where did it come from? And do I want
Mhm.
to accept it? Do I want to let it in? And
Yeah.
that is the most recent process that has propelled me to a different level, is understanding that all these things are not me. I get to examine them for what they are. They're thoughts, they're sentences that come up, they are sentences that are fed by other people or other things, right? And in
Mhm.
that, I also got to choose what I would allow to come in, right?
Yeah.
So I went through a period, and when I tell people this, they look at me like I'm insane. But I went through a period of probably 20 years where I didn't listen to music at all. No music, ever. And it's
Okay.
not that I don't like music, I love music. But I realized at one point that music had such a huge impact on my mood. And I was like,
Mm.
you know what? I'm not going to let something that plays on the radio tell me how I get to feel. I
Yeah.
decide how I feel, right?
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
it went from not listening to music at all so that I could be more in tune with my feelings to, okay, now I get to decide how I want to feel and if I want to use music as a tool to help me get there, right?
Yeah.
So it transitioned a little bit, but I went through a period of, yeah, probably 20 years where I didn't listen to music at all.
Yeah. I mean, right, and again, but how powerful in that to be so aware of there is whatever this outside source something
Yeah,
is, it's changing and altering the way that your energy is, the way you express yourself, and how
yeah,
you're feeling in the moment. And so to be able to be so conscious about choosing what you're going to what tools you're going to use, right, to help you generate feelings and energy and all of that is really, really powerful.
absolutely. Absolutely. And in that, there's this realization also that you do have more control than you think, right? Like,
Mhm.
I understand, and I'm not meaning to say that it isn't real, right? Mental health issues are very real, and I've seen them in a lot of ways play out. And having been a teacher for a long time, I've seen probably everyone there is.
Yeah.
But a lot of it for a lot of us also is so tied to what we allow ourselves to be affected by, right?
Mhm.
So, in a lot of us, like that sense I said before of dissatisfaction, it felt like depression very often. Very often, it felt like anxiety attacks and like all these things that I was able to rise above once I realized how much control I had over so much of it, right? So again, it's not
Mhm.
to negate that it's real, that you should get help if you're experiencing it, but I'm just saying that for a lot of us, a lot of it is very tied to what we allow to permeate and affect the way we feel and what we do.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of love that because it's almost like taking that and kind of those outside things, like taking them on, choosing to take them on as part of your identity,
Yeah,
right? Kind of like you were saying, experiencing that, dissatisfaction, experiencing that depression, like those are experiences that are real and valid,
yeah,
and it's not who you are.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's a big, huge part of it, right? Identity plays so much of a big role in how we behave, in what we do, in how
Mhm.
we present ourselves in front of people. And
Yeah,
you and I know this from working together in certain programs and from some of the work that we've been doing on ourselves. But for
yeah.
so many people, it's such a foreign concept to understand that you get to be who you need to be when you decide to be,
Yes.
right? And so that's part of what I work with people on. I work a lot on self leadership and on that inner communication, that self talk, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things that I point to is the fact that very often we talk to ourselves in ways that don't allow the higher level identity that we can have to show
Mhm.
up because
Mhm.
of the questions we ask ourselves or the things we tell ourselves, right? Like for me, one that I became really well aware of, that was really affecting me more than I thought, was I just can't. Like every time I
Yeah.
felt that something was difficult or was overwhelmed or wasn't working the way that I thought it should work for whatever reason, I
Yeah.
kept repeating to myself, I just can't. I just
Yeah.
can't do this. I just can't win. I just can't. I just can't. I just can't. So my way of being, my attitude, my identity at that moment was as someone who wasn't resourceful enough or who wasn't enough, period. Right. And so I just kept going through the world in this, adopting this persona of somebody who is not enough, of somebody who is lacking, of somebody who doesn't have the energy or the strength or the wisdom or the resources or whatever it was to
Hmm.
get things done. When I
Yeah.
started noticing how often I repeated that to myself, and I started asking different questions and I started saying different things, then I was able to literally talk my way out of this funk that I was in and
Hmm.
into more empowered spaces.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, there are so many powerful things in all of that that you just talked about. And so I guess kind of like segueing in, what is it now? I mean, it sounds like you're helping people with more empowering conversations with themselves, asking more empowering questions. Like, what else are you doing in the world to help create and support empowerment for others?
Well, first and foremost, I help people with self leadership. We
Mhm.
all talk about leadership. We know that leadership is important. We know that leading is the process of taking people through your vision and walking that vision to completion, right? But if you are not managing yourself within that vision, if you are not managing the way you present yourself or the way that you interact with the world around you
Mhm.
and the quote unquote circumstances, and I say quote unquote because we can handle circumstances. Anyway, if we don't manage ourselves within all of that, then we can't lead anybody else.
Yeah.
We can't bring anything valuable or that is meaningful really to existence if we don't see ourselves as worthy, if we don't see ourselves as having the tools, right? So that is the
Mhm.
most important thing I do. But within that, I help people speak their power, speak their voice, speak their message, so that they can help others achieve that same level of
Yeah.
realization and of potential that I help them achieve, right? So it's a
Yeah.
two-way street, is helping the individual achieve a higher level of self-leadership and then turn around and use their voice in a powerful, effective way so that they can lead others into more empowered spaces as well.
I love that because it's like, that self leadership, the me leadership, right? That
Yeah.
becomes more of like, I get to be a role model for
Hmm.
myself, but also for others. And, taking people into leading them to either participate in creating my vision or working with me in the business or like fundraising with the high school students and things like that, right? Like if
Yeah.
the way I show up is going to impact the way that they show up and participate as well. And so, yes, I think that's so powerful. And the conversations that we have with ourselves
Oh yeah.
is really important and impacts the way that we show up and then communicate with other people. So I love that you tackle communication in like two ways, right? The internal and then also with the external world around you.
Absolutely. And they're both really important. I had the blessing, and it really was a blessing, of interviewing Shad Helmstetter before he passed. He wrote the book on self talk. And he used this illustration of how, if you imagine a little kid having a keyboard attached to their heart, and everything that you say, you're typing into that little kid's heart, and you might not be aware of the fact that you're inputting that information, but it's there. And sooner or
Mhm.
later, it's going to surface. And
Yeah.
self talk is the process of identifying those messages and changing them or shifting them as you need to in order to be the person that you get to be in the world, right? So it
Mhm.
starts with understanding that, like we said before, those thoughts, those things that you feel that are not empowering, that don't feel like they move you forward, that don't help you be in your power, those
Mhm.
things are not you. But it's also understanding that it's data that was inputted and you can change it, just like you can change data in a computer.
Hmm. That's so great. So I'm really curious. Like, I'm a very analytical, tactile kind of person. I love
Yeah.
doing things to kind of integrate and implement. And so, what kind of homework would you give to kind of maybe like get into this self-talk, evaluation, understanding kind of concept? What would you suggest?
Well, the first step in anything meaningful, in my opinion, is awareness. And you mentioned awareness before, right? Awareness and
Hmm.
consciousness. You cannot tackle anything that you're not aware of, right? So you
Hmm.
hear very often the first step to solving a problem is acknowledging there is one, right?
Yeah.
So the first step is always awareness. And Dr. Helmstetter actually gave me this homework that I pass on to people is walk around with a little pad or a
Okay.
notebook. And anytime you feel something or you experience something that is throwing you off, that is not letting
Mm.
you move forward, that is moving you into procrastination, that is moving you into feeling bad, whatever it might be, but you know it's stopping you from being who you get to be,
Hmm.
jot down a little note about what you're experiencing and what you're thinking at the moment, right? Like
Mm.
ask yourself, what am I thinking right now?
Yeah.
What is it that I'm paying attention to at this moment? What is
Hmm.
it that I'm experiencing and what might have triggered it if there's something around that is triggering it? And
Yeah.
it's a pain to do at first, but once you get in the habit of doing it, it's amazing what realizations you come into, right? And then the
Yeah.
second step is flip whatever it is that you're thinking to something that is as close to the opposite as possible, but that you can still believe, right? Because
Yes.
where we
Okay.
make the mistake very often is if I'm thinking, for example, I can't speak in front of people, which is one that I work with a lot of people all the time, right? I
Mhm.
can't speak in front of people. I'm too scared.
Yeah.
To go from that to thinking, oh, I'm a master speaker and I am so confident. Your brain knows that you're lying.
Yeah,
And
the stretch
so,
is just
yeah. And
too
so
much
what your
stretch.
brain is gonna do, since it is constantly looking for evidence to prove that it is right and that you're wrong, it's
Yeah.
going to find all the evidence that is going to show you that you're lying to yourself, right? But if
Mm.
you say something like, I have a hard time speaking to people up until now, and I'm not a great speaker yet, but I will be. You can
Mhm.
believe that, right? And you're not denying the difficulty. Or if
Yeah.
you can believe something a little bit stronger, right? Like, I have what it takes to be a speaker. I just
Mhm.
need to practice, right? So you're not
Yes.
lying to yourself. You're telling yourself something that is true, that you can believe. And
Yeah.
then you keep adding to that and building on that until you get to that stage where you're like, I'm the best speaker in the world, and you actually believe it. But I
Yeah.
think that one of the mistakes we make is trying to go too far in that leap, right? And
Mhm.
we often hear people talking about reframing, and I'm not talking about anything different than that. It is reframing. I'm just saying, don't take it so far in the opposite direction that your brain goes to work in proving you wrong. Just
Uh-huh.
take it to the space where you can find the evidence that that is true or could be true.
Yeah, I love that. So I love this little homework piece. It's kind of like makes me feel like I'm a little Sherlock Holmes right now. And so
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a little, a little notepad or put it in the notes in my phone or something, right?
Yeah.
And just make note of those things. And then, like you said, come up with that reframe, a new position to look at life and how I want to feel
Yeah.
or how I want to be, and create something that my brain can support so that I can stay confident in what
Yes.
I'm stepping into and kind of, leaving what doesn't serve me.
Exactly. And if you want a little extra credit,
Okay. I do
then
like extra credit.
then as soon as you come up with a new statement, find evidence to support it right away.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be from your life, which is another mistake that we make, right? Like if
Mm.
I said, okay, my original thought was I'm terrified of speaking in public. My new thought is I can't speak in public yet, but I could with practice. Then
Mhm.
go find evidence of people who have risen above the fear of speaking in public. There's tons,
Yeah.
more people than you think, right?
Yeah.
And look for that evidence and read their experience, read what they went through, and you will probably find yourself going, huh, if they can, so can I, right?
Mhm.
Or find moments when you were in fact able to speak in front even a small group. Well, wait, I was able to deliver that presentation in high school and I didn't die. I can do okay. Right?
Right. Yeah, I love that. Again, like immediately finding evidence that it's true
Yeah,
so that you stay in that
in that
path
space of
of
possibility. Yes.
mhm. Yeah, I love that. It's so great. Oh my goodness, Marcy. So many fantastic little nuggets and activities. So, yes, everybody make sure you do your little bit of homework. Become aware, like jot down things that you're thinking, how they're making you feel. And if you're not feeling the way you want to feel,
Hmm.
right? If it's something that's sidetracking you or taking you down a path you don't want to go, how can you reframe those thoughts
Yes.
to support you to generate feelings that you want?
Absolutely. And
Yeah, I
in that
love it.
understanding that feelings are feedback, right? So that's the
Mhm.
reason we talk about feelings. If we can
Yeah.
tap into the feeling, then we can understand that that's giving us feedback of something that is either working or not working, and then we can identify what that is. So.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And so, Marcy, I know I'll have some links for people so they can connect with you and all of that. I can't remember if you have something coming up soon.
I do
Thought so.
actually.
I thought so. Okay, tell us all about it.
All right. So on Monday, February 20th, that's coming up in a couple of weeks, from 10 a.m. Eastern to 2 p.m. Eastern. So a 4 hour, where I'm going to have the Message Mastery Boot Camp, where I am going to help you clarify what your message gets to be, release all that tension around creating content, the frustration about all the hours you spend trying to figure out what to say and how to say it. We are
Mhm.
going to actually show you how messaging is not about what you think. It's not about the words, it's about something else. And we are going to actually walk you through a process to identify exactly how to communicate with the people that you want to serve so that you can magnetize and attract the right people to your message.
I love it. And I love that you're not giving away your secret sauce right now. You're like, so, if you are an entrepreneur or doing some business, or I mean, anything really, right? Communication in your message does not need to be like email copy that you're sending out to potential clients or that. I mean, you might be your students in your classroom, or it could be people at your company that you're working with on a team to create a project. I love that it's so versatile. So I'm definitely going to be there. And I hope to see some of you all on there as well. And so I'll have links, all of that. Don't worry, I'll put it in the comments so you've got it. And thank you so much, Marcy. I'm just so happy that you got to come here and talk with us today and give us so much good stuff to think about.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was so fun. I knew it would be. I always enjoy talking to you, but I thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat with everybody today.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Now, I know that conversation was jam-packed with value, but to share even more value with you, I have an event coming up that I mentioned in my conversation with Carissa on the 20th of February, 2023, starting at 10 a.m., and it is called the Message Mastery Boot Camp. In that boot camp, I will help you go from confused and unsure to abundantly clear about your message and who you get to share it with. I will share with you the number one secret that is keeping you from landing your message, and it is not what you think. And I will also give you tools that can help you improve your messaging and the way in which you connect with the people you're meant to serve, starting that very same day. So go over to marciamaro.com, scroll about halfway to the page, and you're going to see the link to register for this special boot camp that takes place on February 20th. Don't miss out. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at marci@marciamaro.com. Can't wait to see you in the boot camp and can't wait to share with you next week here on Sincerely Speaking.